Now the various countries of the world condemn Israel. They should be ashamed of themselves. What did they do after America took out Osama bin Laden? Did they say, oh, what a terrible thing was done to Afghanistan or to Pakistan? No, they applauded. They should applaud Israel for standing and up to these same principles and carrying them out. And I say to Qatar and all nations who harbor terrorists, you either expel them or you bring them to justice. Because if you don't, we will.
In a moment, we'll hear from Mike Hanna, who's in Washington, D.C. But first, let's get to Hamda Salhout, who's following developments from Jordan's capital. She's in Amman because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel as well as on the occupied West Bank. Hamda, thank you for joining us. Netanyahu doubling down again. How can you actually have the equivalence of Osama bin Laden, who was not somebody who was an interlocutor for peace?
Well, the Israeli prime minister issuing quite a defiant statement there in the wake of all of this international pressure after Israel violated a number of international laws, striking a country that it's not at war with, one it doesn't have any diplomatic relations with, on its own soil. It's worth mentioning that Qatar has been a key mediator for Israel in these ceasefire negotiations, trying to come to some sort of conclusion to bring about the release of Israeli hostages. So what Netanyahu is saying essentially is that he doesn't care about meddling in the interworkings of another country's political affairs or if there are any other groups there. But this has been the policy of the Netanyahu government, and we've seen it for years, long before this war on Gaza actually began. And we've seen it in a number of cases throughout the war, for example, in both Lebanon, Syria, and Iran, and most recently, just a few hours ago, in Yemen. So what Netanyahu and his defense minister are saying is that they're actually not ruling out another type of action like this. Earlier in the day, Defense Minister Israel Katz said that wherever Israel's enemies are, they're going to reach them, that there are essentially no boundaries for them, no red lines. And despite what the American president had said, that there's not going to be another attack like this on Qatari soil, the Israeli prime minister in this statement isn't really ruling it out.
Hamda, thank you very much indeed for that. Right, we have also Mike Hanna in Washington, D.C. Mike, we are looking at Donald Trump making a statement shortly, or at sometime this evening, Qatari time, but sometime Wednesday. What are we expecting to say, actually? Because he perhaps will have to listen to what Benjamin Netanyahu just said, when he, the Israeli Prime Minister, doubled down on the attack on Doha.
Well, we haven't heard yet from the US president, but no doubt he would have been briefed on those comments from the Israeli prime minister, who stopped short of directly repudiating President Trump's concerns about this attack, though there was an implication that he might do it again, though President Trump has assured Qatar it will not happen again on their territory, as he said in his statement 24 hours ago. So Benjamin Netanyahu, to an extent here, does appear to be doubling down. But looking at the content of what he says, the comparison of 9/11 and what happened in Israel, or the events after 9/11, and what Israel has now done in Qatar, falls apart slightly when one looks at the facts of the matter. The Hamas delegation is in Qatar with the support of and possible backing of the United States. Qatar agreed to host Hamas within that area in a bid to restore some form of region-wide peace. So for Netanyahu to compare the actions in the wake of 9/11 to what he's just done has no validity whatsoever. But we will be hearing from President Trump, we expect, in the course of the day. And it must be noted, too, that though President Trump was critical of Netanyahu's action, Israel's action, he was critical of its location. He was not critical of the fact that there was an attempt to assassinate people with whom the Israeli government was supposed to be involved in some form of negotiation with, and who were in fact considering a proposal which had just been put forward days ago by the United States.
Mike, thank you very much indeed. Mike Hanna there for us in Washington, D.C. as we await Donald Trump and a statement later Wednesday.
Don't miss out and get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.